You're listening to the Being Stellar podcast, the podcast for modern leaders and entrepreneurs who are tired of hustle culture and ready to invite more ease and more prosperity into their lives. I'm your host, Deborah Stellingworth, master teacher and coach, and I am obsessed with helping you avoid burnout while you create a sustainable lifestyle full of possibility and profit on your terms. On the show, you'll hear inspiring stories of possibility, and you'll get empowering strategies and insights from me to support you in creating your stellar life. Well, hello there, and welcome back to the Being Stellar podcast. You know that a lot of the times, the topics that I choose to talk about on the show are inspired by conversations I've had with my clients or things that have happened in my own life. Today's episode is inspired by a conversation I had last week with one of my highest producing, most motivated clients. He came to the call and said to me, I'm struggling with procrastination. And I've done an episode on procrastination before, and it was the focus really on just how to do the thing and move yourself from that procrastination. But I've been digging a little bit more into this, and I want to take a slightly different, nuanced approach to this discussion about procrastination, because I think sometimes what we refer to as procrastination and then we punish ourselves for it isn't actually procrastination. So let's get clear on what we mean by procrastination, what the root causes of actual procrastination are, and what we might be experiencing instead of procrastination in those times when we are blaming ourselves for procrastinating. Okay. And the title of this podcast was Procrastination versus Decision Fatigue. So you know where I'm going with this. And let me explain. So let's look at the definition of procrastination. Procrastination is defined as the habit of unnecessarily delaying an important task, usually by focusing on less urgent, more enjoyable, and easier activities instead. Now, it's different than laziness because laziness, which is an unwillingness to act, is quite different than procrastination, where we're just avoiding something because it's maybe unpleasant. Procrastination can undermine us. Even laziness can undermine us, but that's a whole different podcast episode for somebody else, because I actually work with high achievers, so we don't tend to have that issue of laziness. But the difference between procrastination, that focus on unnecessarily delaying an important task by focusing on the less urgent, the more enjoyable, and the easier activities instead, is worth looking at, because often we can fall into procrastination. We think, I'm lazy, I'm wrong, I'm bad. We beat ourselves up, we criticize ourselves, we judge ourselves for being wrong or bad because we catch ourselves procrastinating. Now, here's the thing we want to keep in mind. Procrastination isn't laziness. Procrastination is a stress response. Let me say that again. Procrastination is a stress response. And there are 4 responses when we are stressed: fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. Can you guess which one is at play when we're procrastinating? If you guessed freeze, you're right. So when we are procrastinating, it's likely because we have some kind of stress response happening. We might be afraid of the result. We might just be afraid of the discomfort. So our brains are pre-programmed to avoid discomfort. Your brains are not designed to help you be successful or even make you happy. They're designed to keep you alive, which means we are designed to avoid discomfort. So any task that we perceive, rightly or wrongly, as being uncomfortable, we may avoid it. And that is a stress response because our brain thinks it's not safe. So what can be really helpful is to allow ourselves to know that it is safe for us to do it. So for example, I tend to avoid bookkeeping and anything to do with bookkeeping. I don't do my own bookkeeping anymore. I have my VA who does that for me and a bunch of other great things that she does. She's wonderful. And I'm so glad I have her. And I'm still not great at sending in receipts. I'm getting better at it because I'm teaching my brain that it's safe for me to do this task that's kind of a drag. Like there's things that I would much rather be doing with my time than digging through my Uber receipts and figuring out which one was business related and which one wasn't and sending them over to her. Now, I'm getting systems in place because I'm all about systems to do that immediately on a regular basis right after. And it helps when you find out where the Uber hides the receipts. Once you've done that, it's actually really easy. But that's just one example of the things that we might avoid. And it's those little things like, I'm procrastinating on that. But I also want to check in, what do I mean by that? What am I worried about? What is my brain thinking is not safe or is going to be uncomfortable or unpleasant? And can I tell it a different story? Because with the example of the Uber receipts, now that I've taken a minute to literally, it was like a couple of minutes it took me to figure this out. But it took some time to sit down and go, okay, I'm going to take care of these receipts. There was some pressure and some timeline there and we'll talk about that in a second too, to get it done because taxes are due in, my accountant is waiting for these last few details to just wrap up my taxes for the year. So there was some pressure and, but once I took a few minutes to find the receipts inside the Uber app and I have them and I was like, oh, that was really satisfying. And I realized how easy it is because now I've done it once and I actually know where to find those receipts. It's going to be super easy if I ever take an Uber for business purposes, just to fire that receipt off immediately after to my VA so she can put it in the system. So just an example of changing the mindset around the activity. Now, sometimes it's something bigger than finding Uber receipts that you might be avoiding or putting off. But anytime you're avoiding something, it's usually because there's a root cause. There's a fear of something happening, something that doesn't feel safe for you. So it's a matter of teaching your brain that it is safe for you to do this task. Okay, so that's one thing when we're talking about procrastination is getting to the root cause of what it is you're afraid of. And you're like, well, I'm not afraid. You may not actually feel fear, but as I said, we're wired to avoid discomfort. So if anything even feels uncomfortable, we're going to avoid it. So if we can kind of train our brains that it's safe and it's not going to be that uncomfortable, then we're more likely to be able to take the task. Okay. The other thing with procrastination, I was talking about this with my client last week specifically, was that sometimes we put things off because we are waiting for that adrenaline rush. Like I did it. I've gotten so much better at this. And I used to live in that state constantly where I was, when I was in university, I was writing papers all night long the night before they were due. And it's not that I didn't think about the papers and take notes on how I was going to write and what I was going to say. And I did all the research ahead of time, but I just couldn't seem to get myself inspired to write my papers until like right before they were due. And I realized now looking back that I was addicted to that hormone rush, that cortisol rush that comes from that pressure that we get from a deadline. And I was doing that in all areas of my life. And I wanted to change that because I was feeling like, oh my gosh, like I can't get inspired to do anything unless I have this fear that I'm going to be embarrassed because I didn't get something done when I said I was going to get it done. It was just not a nice way to live. And I've done a lot of work to shift out of that and to prioritize tasks so that I'm getting things done before I have that feeling of anxiety. And I'll tell you, it is a much more pleasant way to live than living with that constant anxiety of, oh my gosh, the time is running out. I have to get this done now. Now, I'm not talking about when we're prioritizing and some things have to be left. I'm talking about when we deliberately leave everything to the last minute. So we're always rushing. That is no way to live. And I don't want to do it for myself and I don't want that for you either. So notice, are you maybe addicted to the stress hormones that come from putting something off until the last minute where you suddenly feel that rush of like adrenaline and now you can do it? I mean, I used to believe that I wasn't creative unless I had that pressure. And it's amazing what happens when you take that pressure off yourself, how much more creative you can be. Because the fact is, when our amygdala and our left brain are online and they are in survival mode, the right brain and the prefrontal cortex powers down a little bit, and our creativity powers down a little bit. And we're going by sheer force of will rather than being in flow and creativity. So I'm not, I mean, maybe it's not true for you, but that's true for me. That's been my experience, that I have created so much more in my business and my life since I stopped participating in my own habit of creating stress and rushing at the last minute. Okay. Which was one of the reasons that I so-called procrastinated, put things off, is because I had that addiction to that stress hormone. Now, another reason you might be procrastinating could be that you are literally afraid of the results you're going to get. You might be afraid of the success. So maybe there's, an email you need to send to invite somebody into a conversation, and you're just afraid they're going to say no. So it could be fear of rejection. It could be fear of success. So, think of a project that you have right now or something you want to do that if you were to do it, it would exponentially increase the income or time freedom or fun you're having in your life or your business, and you're putting it off. So I'm going to suggest you might be afraid of that change. Even sometimes when the change is good, I do a lot of work on my programs, as you know, on money. And we all say we want more money, and yet we do things to block it because we may have a fear about what it might mean about us if we want it, what it might mean about us if we have it. And so what it might cost us to get it. So there might be a lot of reasons that you are afraid of the success that will happen if you take that action that you're procrastinating about. So the key is really to get to the root cause of that stress response, that freeze response you're in with the procrastination, and then let yourself know that it's actually safe. And some of that might mean it's going to take you a little bit of time, maybe some coaching, some therapy, some EFT tapping. I have some of those videos on my website, and there's lots of people on the internet who do EFT as well. And you can tap on anything. You're afraid of having more money? Tap on that. You're afraid of success? You're afraid of trusting yourself? Whatever that is, I have a lot of videos on that too. So you can let yourself know that it is safe for you to have that success that's going to result from that action. And it is a matter of rewiring your nervous system so that you can take the action. All right, so one more thing here, that your procrastination may not actually even be procrastination. So we've established that procrastination is a fear response, and we first want to check, if I'm procrastinating, I want to check, is this something I'm afraid of? And if so, what is it? And how can I tell myself that it's going to be safe? And how can I change the narrative around the task or the activity or the results even? And once I've determined that I might go, well, this isn't actually procrastination because I'm not afraid of anything. And I'm not afraid of making this decision. I'm not afraid of the success that I might have if I do this thing. Then I want to ask myself the question, am I suffering from procrastination? I'm not sure if suffering is the right word, actually, but we're going to use it. Am I experiencing procrastination? Or am I experiencing decision fatigue, which is a result of just straight up fatigue, right? We have a limited number of decisions we can make every day. There's a reason why Steve Jobs and President Obama were known to wear the same clothes every day. Now, you didn't notice it as much with Obama because he was wearing either a blue suit or a gray suit and always the white shirt, and his daughters picked his ties. He didn't want to waste any decision-making power on deciding what to wear. Steve Jobs, the same thing. It's not that he forgot to change his clothes. He literally just had one of everything in there, and it was to minimize the decision-making that he had to make every day. Because you do have a limited capacity for decisions each day. So if you've noticed, if you don't have a good sleep, it's hard to make a decision. And also, if you've made a lot of decisions lately, you can get tired and have a hard time making another decision. And the decision could simply be do I send that email or do I make this video? And you kind of get stuck. You're like, I don't know what to do next. And sometimes that's what's happening. So I want to check in. Maybe you're not procrastinating and you're wasting all this energy beating yourself up about procrastinating when really you are experiencing decision fatigue or possibly fatigue, actual fatigue, like physical fatigue. And so we want to take care of ourselves and check in. And sometimes, and here's the homework that I gave my client last week when we discovered that it wasn't really procrastination. It shows as procrastination because we're avoiding certain things, but it was really something underlying, that there was decision fatigue. There was nothing he was afraid of. It was more about he was just fatigued. He was physically tired, and he also had been making a ton of important decisions in his business, and he just needed to step back, take a break, give his brain a minute to catch up, or 2 hours, however long you need your nap for, and just to have it some time to just daydream and let his mind wander and rest. And whether it's meditation or a snooze or whatever it is you need, but your brain needs some rest sometimes. Like when you go to the gym, or when I go to the gym, which I'm going to right after this podcast, that's why I'm in my gym gear. For those of you who are watching the video, when I go to the gym, my trainer pushes me to fatigue, right? And then sometimes he'll ask me to push a little bit more out, but then he gives me rest periods. He doesn't ask me to keep going because our muscles in our body need some time to rest and recover between sets at the gym and also between visits to the gym. Our brain is no different. Think of every decision you make as a rep. And the more of them they're doing, you're going to need breaks in between. So I call that Edison time. I actually stole that from somebody. I don't even know who that was, but Thomas Edison is known to have taken breaks every afternoon just to daydream. And my clients, I encourage them to build this in, and I encourage you to do the same. Just take a little bit of time each day where you're just daydreaming. Your mind is wandering. You're not having to make any decisions. It might be during your meditation. It could be in early morning when you're waking up and you're having some hang time between waking up and actually fully getting up. But you're giving your brain some time to recover from all of the decisions you've been making. And you will find when you give yourself that recovery time, you are much more likely to not be avoiding, or what you might call procrastinating, about those tasks that you have not been getting done. So check in with yourself. Where are you at right now? Are you avoiding something because you're afraid of the results you're going to get, or maybe just a little bit discomfort? Because you might go, well, but I'm not afraid of doing the laundry, but I procrastinate about that. Well, it could be you're just like, I really hate doing the laundry. And if your brain thinks it hates doing the laundry, it's uncomfortable. You just don't want to, right? So, you might feel you have other priorities are way more important. Okay. True story is happening in my home right now. That there's other things right now. They're taking precedence over doing the laundry. And I can understand why some people just go buy new underwear, because I'm literally on the verge of doing that. And so it's, and that's just because I've been away several weekends in a row and haven't caught up on the laundry, not because I'm super busy. I am busy, but I'm not even busy. That's not even true. My life is full with things that I love doing, and laundry is just not one of them. So I could say that I'm procrastinating, or I could say I'm just not prioritizing it because I'm not afraid of the laundry. I actually really enjoy folding laundry. It's very meditative for me. So anyways, but I'm coming back after that tangent, but the point is that looking at those things that you might be procrastinating about, check in. Are you afraid of something? Or are you avoiding a discomfort? What's the deal? Are you afraid of some success? Or is it that you just don't have the capacity to make the decisions? Like sometimes literally I don't have the capacity to decide, if I put this laundry in right now, when will it be finished before I leave? Because I don't want to leave a washing machine running while I'm not home. Sometimes I don't have the capacity to make that decision. And then I know that's decision fatigue. That's not procrastination. Okay. So those are just some random examples from my life, but check in with yourself. What do you need? Are you procrastinating, or is it decision fatigue? Okay. So stop being so hard on yourself. If you are indeed having decision fatigue, take some time to rest. Now, if this is something that resonates with you and you're feeling like, wow, I'd like to get to a place where I am not feeling panicky at the last minute about tasks being done, where I'm not like caught up in that that rush of hormones of anxiety that comes from leaving things to the last minute, or I want to overcome a tendency towards procrastination by getting to the root cause of what it is that's making me procrastinate and avoid these tasks. Or if you're struggling with decision fatigue and you want to create a different way of working with the time that you have. Notice I didn't say time blocking because I'm not a fan of it. I'm not against it, but I don't think that's that's not the resolution that we're looking for. Is not time blocking doesn't solve anything. It's actually, we've got to go to the deeper cause of why we are not keeping our word to ourselves, why we're not doing the thing we said we were going to do. We want to go to the root cause of that, whether it's procrastination or decision fatigue. Let's get to the root cause of that. So if that's something you're interested in doing, those are things that we tackle inside my Aligned and Prosperous coaching program. So if you want to talk more about that, you know where to find me. You can click a link somewhere on my website and access me there, book an appointment, we can have a call. Got lots of exciting things happening in the academy right now, the Aligned and Prosperous Academy as well. Lots of resources to help you with that, as well as in my private one-on-one coaching and my mastermind groups. So there's lots of different ways that you can work with me to get the support you need to get to the root cause of why you're not taking action, or if you are taking action, you're doing it in a really frantic way, or maybe you're having decision fatigue. So we can get to the root cause of that and help you to shift into a more aligned and prosperous way of showing up for yourself in your business and your life. All right. So keep being stellar, because that's what you're being by showing up here to listen to this podcast episode, to listen to the other ones, to continue to be growing. When we are reaching out for support like this, whether it's just listening to my podcast and you're wanting to grow, you're wanting to be a better version of yourself, that's what I call being stellar, right? You developing into the best version of you is you being in alignment with the universe, which is constantly expanding, and so can you. All right, make a wonderful day, and I will see you again really, really soon. Bye for now.